Welcome to the Have You Met Her Yet podcast, a podcast by Pink Crown Creative. I am your host, Lindsay Dent, the founder of Pink Crown Creative, a Vancouver-based marketing consulting company. This podcast was created to shine a spotlight on women in the workplace, who they are, what they do, why you should know them. In this week's episode, I speak with Megan Williams, the director of the self-publishing agency. Megan is an award-winning author of Our Interrupted Fairytale. She is also the co-author of a children's book with her award-winning 10-year-old stepdaughter, Madison. I can't wait for you to meet Megan. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Have You Met Her Yet?, the podcast series. Today I am with Megan from the self-publishing agency. Welcome. Oh, thank you so much for coming. Yeah, okay, so to get started, the first question I have for you is, what is your story, what do you do, and how did you get to where you are today in your career?
Well, how long do you have? So to summarize how we got into book publishing is, my background is in PR and advertising. That was what I finished my degree in. And then I started working for BC Transplant on the communications team. And during that period, I had decided that I wanted to write a book. It was essentially a memoir that was co-authored with my late partner. And I found a diary that he had written saying, publish this when the time is right. In that diary, I found it a couple months after he passed away due to an incurable blood cancer. And it took me a little while to wrap my head around what would that book look like. But I'm working full time, so some people would call me a creative. So I was working corporate job and then sort of daydreaming about what could this book look like, and I enjoyed the blogging around it and all that. And then I decided to commit to writing the book and realized that once the book was done, I didn't know what to do after that. All I had in my head was what I see in the movies, which is, somebody sitting on a cabin lakeside after a publishing house has paid them several $1 million, and now they're crafting their beautiful book, and that is all I understood about book publishing is what I'd seen. And I only knew the three big companies, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, and Simon Schuster. That must be the only place that you could really go to get your book published. So I spent about a year just researching what would that look like and talking to every single person who had, if you knew that your cousin's friend had published a book, I'm like, would your cousin's friend talk to me? And would call them in Pennsylvania and see if I could just collect enough information to figure out how do I go about getting my book out into the world. And then I started exploring, what would self-publishing look like? Because I was starting to recognize that this trade publishing and the traditional publishing route was going to take years and years, and I had a pretty active audience ready to read this book now that I've been talking about it. So, lots of research, lots of blogging, reviewing blogs and weighing pros and the cons of book publishing. I decided that self-publishing was probably the best route for me because I understand how to market things. I already had an audience. I could be resourceful enough to find an editor and a cover designer myself. And then sort of assembled this professional publication with a Globe and Mail editor and professional cover design. So it didn't cut any corners. And as a result, when it launched, it did quite well. Not just as an indie book, but as just as well as books do when they get launched. We sold a couple thousand copies in its first year. And it wasn't until sort of a year later that in that year I started picking up a few people being like, hey, I'd love to write a book. As we talked about earlier, would you want to meet me for coffee?
Yeah.
And could you talk about a little bit more about how you found your editor and all that? So I was, started having a lot of coffee dates and started meeting people, making it convenient to meet them, out in Langley when I lived on the North Shore.
Right.
Just so they could pick my brain, which I didn't mind because a lot of people gave me the extra time
Right.
when I was looking to publish my book. So I'm happy to pay that forward. Then that momentum really started picking up when my stepdaughter and I wrote our children's book. I kind of had an idea now of how to assemble a publishing team and had a network that was growing that I felt I could draw on to help this book succeed. So we did the same thing as I did with my first book, and then that book did well, and that's when the snowball really started going. I'm getting asked to do a few workshops and seminars and attending writers' festivals, and again, a lot of like, how did you do it? Could I pick your brain? Could I set up a meeting? So a friend in finance actually told me that maybe you have enough coffee dates now that you could make a business model out of this.
Yeah, wow.
So at the time, I was working full time at different jobs. I moved from transplant to a startup and then back into the health authority. So my regular, I don't even want to call it a regular career, was still moving along.
Yeah.
But you know, as time went on, that side hustle, passion, and the creative side started really, like, it just started taking up all my brain space. Like, that's all I wanted to think about. It's what I thought about when I was in the shower. It would have been what I think about while I'm driving to and from work. And then once I put together this business model and wanted to test it out, I launched it sort of just very quietly on Instagram and had a very humble website, and just started slowly talking about it and directing people who were asking me questions to the self-publishing agency's website. And you know, within 3 months there was just enough going on, like in terms of clients and books that I was helping with, that when my contract ended in my corporate life, it was just enough revenue for me to be able to move into the self-publishing agency full time.
Amazing.
And that was 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
And at the time it was me, and I referred out to 1 or 2 designers and 1 or 2 illustrators. And that was with 4 clients at the time. And now I think we're nearing 200 clients that we've had, and we have a team of like 4 designers, 4 editors, a project manager, web people. It's like the team has all grown. Yeah. So that is the long-winded answer about how I ended up where I am right now.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's really cool to see how you built that business from something that you just purely were passionate about and a problem that you found in the industry of what do you do, where do you go, how do you get things moving along, and now you're kind of like that gap for people to help them like launch their business or their book or their ideas or their brainchild or whatever that looks like. So that's so cool that you now are like that problem solver, I guess.
I hope I can solve problems for people. That's the main goal, is to be able to take something the same way that if you don't know how to plan a wedding. Yeah. You mean like technically you can find out how to do that yourself, but for anybody who's busy, you start to feel like, well, wouldn't it be easier if we just hired somebody to do this? Or the same reason we don't learn to cut our own hair. Yeah. It's like, yes, we could technically physically do this, but again, recognizing like what type of support people need and be able to provide that service for them so they can like go about doing what they like and what gets them excited or helps actually earn them income. Yeah. And take us on to do the heavy lifting for them. Yeah, for sure. So within that 2.5 years, what were sort of the major things that came up that were pain points for you? Maybe if there's something that made you be like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, or made you kind of second question, or people question you. It still happens. I can't say it doesn't. Every time somebody says, oh, have you heard of this service, or have you heard of this platform about book publishing, until I go and research it, I have this moment of being like, oh my god, my business is gonna go under because somebody else is doing something similar. And the thing is there are lots of similar businesses out there. There's lots of consultants who help with book publishing. So I always had, like, for 2.5 years, I have these like take your breath away moments where I'm like, oh my god, is somebody doing this bigger and better than I am already? Like, are they gonna sink me? And of course the answer is no, because as long as you understand what makes you different than another And inevitably, that's what happens. I go and research what's going on and what that business is, and you realize, like, oh, this might actually be a complementary service.
Right.
Or it might help me understand what is different about our business than, what I was originally panicked about. Pain points have always been trying to find the best talent to be able to help people. It hasn't come difficult. It isn't a difficult thing to find really talented people. But for example, I'm of the school of thought that you should always hire people who are smarter than you.
Oh yeah,
better at things than you are. Whereas, so in some situations, like I'm not a designer, for example, so I could look at someone's portfolio and be like, yeah, that looks pretty good, but I don't actually know how strong they are until another designer might vouch for them or something.
Right.
So
right.
in terms of making sure you're hiring the best team, it's not a pain point as much as it is something that always gives me pause to make sure that this the best provider that we could be giving writers with. So.
Right.
And like just general fear all the time.
Yeah.
Just operating, just scared. I
always
go through surges. So there's your three things. There's the first,
yeah,
which is being scared that somebody is taking your business idea and somebody's doing it better.
Yeah.
Second is like hiring the right people, and then third is just trying to overcome your own ego and fears that what you're doing is it the best that you could be doing, and is it working? And the thing is I don't yes, it's working, but yes, I'm scared all of the time.
Yeah.
So.
No, it is good to share that and to hear that, because I do find, especially businesses who promote themselves online, a lot of people look at them, perfect Instagram, etc., and they're like, oh, they're so successful right off the bat, they're like incredible. But when you hear entrepreneurs and business owners share those fears and share like, oh no, I'm scared of this and that, it's good to know that, you are looking into other people, but you're also checking yourself and being like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm confident in the work that you're doing and et cetera, right? So it's good to know that and to share that with other people, because it's a real struggle.
Real, right? And I've got sort of some pockets of friends who are like, pure entrepreneurs. Like, they've built a product that doesn't actually exist on the marketplace.
Yeah.
And they're doing millions of dollars in revenue, and you ask them, like, how's it going? And they're like, oh, pretty scared. Like, just always trying to see what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Like, so, if you get the opportunity to have a real conversation with people, you start very quickly realizing that it's in our DNA to create something and to hustle to build it. It comes with the side dish of just constant self-doubt and fear.
Definitely.
Except for the days that you're done, you're like, I'm killing it. This is fantastic. Like, look at me. I can, I've got, everything's working. And then the next day, somebody's like, oh, have you found this website that's doing? You're just like, it's over for me.
No, close shop.
Just huge swings. So that would be, I would say, I don't know if I am unique in thinking that, but in the last 2 years, I don't think those emotional swings are private for me. They're not, you can't recognize that in the service, but that would be the hardest thing that, the business has continued to grow, which is wonderful, but my own emotions has been just rampant with fear and joy in the same hour.
Yeah. So. I totally know that up and down. You're like, this is the best day ever, and then one small thing is just like, no, over.
Yeah.
Done.
And it's like, and for anybody who's living either with a roommate, be it a husband or an actual just friend, and they're privy to see those swings, I sure hope that everybody has somebody who can weather that storm and not ride the swings with you, because otherwise you're both in panic mode and you're both shots fired. So
very, very true.
Yeah, and I find and it's always nice that you ask this question, because it's very easy for us to, there's lots and lots of material out there that talks about act as if, and be the person that you want people to perceive you as, whatever that shit is. But the short version is that there's so much fear attached to it, right?
Oh,
And
for sure.
And and I agree, when you're looking at people's online lives, we all form our own narrative about how that's going for someone.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know I just announced this big news for our business, but I've spent 5 months doing legal contracts and trying to like pay for, entertainment lawyers to do that. So it's like, so, it's like, it's not all splash.
Yeah. No, definitely. So when you're building your business, did you have any mentors or anyone that has sort of inspired you by the way that you run your business?
Yes, but the mentors, we've always joked to a couple of my friends that they're on like my personal board of directors.
Nice.
So our business doesn't have a board of directors yet, or sort of an advisory committee in a formal capacity, but I'm very lucky to have sort of connected with people, and most of them, they're friends first, followed by advisors second. But I can't say I can pinpoint one mentor that's been a game changer, but that's a compliment to all of them.
Yeah.
It's not to say one is better than the other, but again, going back to that, I try and surround myself with people who know things more than I do. So to try and settle myself, I need to bounce these ideas off of, not just in theory, but actual work questions about how do you budget for this, or what is the strategy to approach this situation. So it's not just a highlight reel, it's real conversation. I know some people set up monthly meetings with their advisors, and mine have been on training runs and drives to Whistler.
Yeah, but it's good, and I find talking about your business and asking questions is really beneficial, because sometimes it's all in your head, and it just one person kind of says something to you and you're like, oh, that's it. You're just sometimes so much in your head that you don't see the clear view of different things that you should be doing. So it's so nice that you do have that. And I mean, even if it's in casual ways, it's still getting the job done, right?
Yeah, and it's so nice to know that people are feel comfortable enough to, because I think there's two types of people that we come across if we were to categorize people, which I know we're not supposed to do. But you're gonna either approach somebody who takes that act as if personality, or that act as if brand of themselves, and commits to it and isn't really checking in with people and doesn't want to, they are always acting as if they've arrived and therefore no one has anything else to add.
Right.
Or you've got the other school of person who's like, can I ask you another question? What else do you think about that? And trying to absorb so much. I do find that I can see myself at some point recognizing that I do know that I'm the only person who knows the business vision as crisp as I do.
Right.
So I have to be aware of how much input I allow in it sometimes, because sometimes I'm got a clear shot of what I'm aiming for.
Right.
And I don't need any gusts of winds to take that.
Absolutely.
To push that off course.
Yeah, absolutely.
But those moments are far and in between. But it's know what your true North Star is, and if anyone's helping nudge you in that direction, they're good, and then otherwise it's just information overload.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That kind of touches on my next question. What would be one valuable piece of advice that you would give to someone who is starting a business, or maybe who wants to get into your industry?
Firstly, don't get into the industry. We're the only people that you should use.
No competition.
No competition. Stay out of the way.
Yeah.
Well, most recently I've realized that when you start your first year of business, I think you're just trying to figure out what's landing for people and what people are pay attention to the questions people are asking you, especially if you're in a service-based industry. Mm-hmm. So what are the questions that they're asking you? What is their needs, and paying attention to that, and just sort of keeping a record of if your business can help serve that. And if not, is there a referral out that could support that? And then the second, I wish I've learned in the second year, is that everything costs more money than you think it does and takes more time than you think it does. So, you know, in my first year I was like charging just what I wanted to cover costs and just roughly how much time that would take.
Yeah.
Whereas now you start realizing, especially as a business owner, you start like, I'm not even making, everyone else is making some money now and your clients are doing really well, but what I didn't account for because I hadn't sort of run a business over 2 years before, that I was realizing that, oh, my administration time isn't being accounted for, or the time that I'm spending going back and forth on behalf of people isn't being accounted for.
Yeah.
So I wish that I would have, maybe somebody did give me this advice and it just didn't, I was too scared to take it, but now I'm starting to recognize, and this comes with being a little bit more established now.
For sure.
We're able to, like, now I recognize that everything's costing more than I expected it to, and the great news is because our standards are so high, that's why it's costing so much.
Absolutely.
So that would be something that I would take into account, either like be very clear about timelines and how much time each client takes, but also make sure that you're like paying yourself, because that just contributes to the fear that about what we're all doing.
Yeah.
So
I think it's really, really hard to figure that out until you have that one client that you've undercharged, and then you break it down and you're like, oh damn, I made $2 an hour. And you don't really think, how much is my time worth, and you don't think about the skill you have, what you're like, why they're hiring you. Sometimes it's really hard to break that down because you're like, well, I'm self-employed and I like helping people, and it's
and we all sort of like go into this really scared mode of like, if ever I've done it more times than I care to admit, when someone's like, oh, well, how much like did you make on that? And I start being like, like my voice goes really high, and I realize just how insecure I am about that conversation. And so that has been something we've been working on as a team to make sure that everyone when they're giving their best value to people, to make sure that their time is being compensated. So
for sure.
That's something as a team we've worked on, and then that's something I personally have to work on because just outside of the business, I just have to be comfortable to own up to how much, take a real objective look at how much time I take on things, and make sure that I'm not just poor. So
it's true. You got to eat too, and that's something someone told me that before. It's like, you need to eat as well, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's such great advice. Yeah, you do. You have to buy all these other things, so make sure you're charging what you're worth.
And I've heard some people make the argument about that being like a female quality versus a male quality, but I can't say that I've witnessed that. But I can say that I've seen it happen where I've sat at different dinners and stuff with somebody who is overcharging in the early days of their business, and I remember feeling like, wow, that's extraordinary that you have that confidence to charge that. And I have no idea how their businesses are doing now, but I remember that flag being like male or female, thinking that is like equally missing the mark, because I don't know how long you can last when people are like, that is expensive.
And it's hard when people question that, and when you're like that red flag standing out amongst everyone else, it kind of either like cheapens everyone else, or it makes everyone else like, it's hard to be on a level playing field in that.
And then you go and find somebody who's like billing astronomically, and you're like, well, I guess if the market supports that. So
very, very true. And then the next question I have is, what is one resource that you can share that has been really beneficial to your job or maybe your career, but maybe if there's a tool that helps?
No, mine's a person.
Her
name's Ira Verdani. She runs our show.
Amazing.
I mean, for our business specifically, Canva, sorry,
Okay.
not Canva, that's obviously helpful for Instagram. Asana and Copper now. So I know people use Slack a lot, but Copper works really well for us. I can't say it's been instrumental though, it just is helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it's another like messaging community tool
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, for example, we've got a couple people, you know, I don't want to be forwarding emails all of the time.
Yeah.
Because we're all getting so many emails. So this platform, the Copper platform, is pretty good because you can read the communication between like somebody else on your team and the client
Oh, wow.
without you having to be like, what did they say about that?
Oh, that is cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one before. Wow, so many saved things that could have happened if I knew about that tool a long time ago.
But I can't say, I mean, Ira likes it better than I do because she uses it more than I do.
Yeah,
It helps her job more than it helps me.
Yeah. So it's something that, trickles down and helps. What would be a piece of valuable advice you can give to a woman to overcome challenges in the workplace? Or have you ever had a challenge as a female in the workplace? Or maybe in this role that you have?
No, but I do think that I have friends who have, but I've been pretty lucky. I mean, a lot of my career has either been like I've been working with really strong female leaders, so I haven't experienced any gender discrimination.
Yeah, that's
like
great.
that. But I do think, unfortunately, I don't really.
That's okay.
Like, because I think like if you know what you're good at and you're not, and maybe I'm not the best person to ask this question for, is because I don't suffer from not speaking my voice or that whole pull your seat in and have a seat at the table kind of thing. That's not something that I've ever felt like I couldn't do.
Right.
So thank you to my parents.
Yeah. That's great.
But that's not something that I've witnessed happen to others either. Like I just sort of, I'm always like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, say what you're gonna say.
Yeah. That's
So I don't know. You can maybe decide to omit that question or to leave it out. But I'm not a great person to ask for it because I don't have enough personal experience with it to know like what it feels like to be like really not like valued the same way. I've had a few situations, but I always use that to my advantage. That, well, now I know what you think of me,
right.
and I'm not going to spend all of my time trying to convince you I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play to my strengths, and we end up with the same result.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to look at it, and especially helpful for someone who doesn't know like what to do or which kind of attitude to have in that situation.
Well, and that comes from having like good business people around
Definitely.
you, like having that conversation. Like, well, we already know that they think that you might not know this information, so why don't we good cop, bad cop it, or something like that. So, plus it's like I said, I haven't been like hurt or impacted so strongly that I'm like shy or anything like that. So I'm like not a good person.
That's
okay.
okay.
Go for it. You're good.
That's all good. That's all good. Do you have any strategies to avoid burning out or feeling overwhelmed or making you want to quit?
No.
So still work in progress.
Yeah, I don't, but I also, again, I have not come up to too many scenarios where I am like just crippled with either anxiety or too much work that I haven't, like, I have yet to be able to shake my 9 to 5 mentality. So like work out in the morning, be at work, and then like TV time,
right,
and extracurricular in the evenings.
Yeah,
it doesn't always fall under that that routine, but in terms of balance, like my husband probably doesn't think I have balance, but that's because like if somebody's like, "What's your hobby?" I'm like, "Working." So, but I like exercise lots. I try and like vent lots when things are bothering me. Started meditating, like
good for you.
But I know it's I'm not the personality type that is like, I'm not a susceptible person to not being balanced.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I've ever had that in me to like sort of I don't swing in extremes.
Yeah.
So I've kind of stayed pretty steady on like what I like to do, and what I like to do is probably things that help keep me balanced. So.
Yeah, that's good. It's important to remember to do things you like. I think sometimes people feel burnt out and then they forget, oh my gosh, I like reading, I like taking a bath, I like doing these things, and they just forget that those things are important.
And that's like, I think that's also like, that's work too, right? Is to like make sure. I've done a lot of like reading and exploring like what type of performance are you doing when you're in flow versus what are you doing when you're hanging on by a thread.
Right.
And so and we have some clients who are extraordinary at this, who really understand that when you're trying to perform at your best, there are things that you have to do that are actually supporting, like, we don't think that they're work,
right?
Because like reading a book or taking a bath or going to a really slow yoga class doesn't feel like work,
right?
So therefore there's a guilt attached to it, etc. etc.
Yeah.
But if you use that as like a strategy to be in flow and to do good work, the mentality shift is it's helpful. I think that's what I've had to do. Is realize that like if I put my laptop away tonight, this actually might be good for me, instead of panicking and firing off 11 p.m. emails.
Yeah.
So like it's a conscious effort to always stay balanced, because I can perform better if I'm balanced.
No, that's really good. The next question I have for you is, so someone who wants to write a book, what
come see us?
What steps should they be taking, or what advice would you give for someone who wants to do that?
I would say the first things would be to stop talking about it and just do it, because there's a romantic idea about the people who say, oh, I've always wanted to write a book, or I've been writing a book for years.
Yeah, that is me.
Right? But it sounds really good, because it somehow scratches that itch, being like, you are doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm of the belief that if you really want to do this, you're going to do it, and we can do it fast.
Right.
Not fast as in like to compromise quality, but like if you want to do it, then let's actually do it.
Right.
So for anybody who wants to write a book, you like let's start doing it then. Like let's make this, like let's put a deadline on it, and not a word count goal or anything like that. Let's put a deadline. Like, when would you like to launch this? And then let's have a conversation about what you need to do in order to do that. So not just what are you going to do to get to your first draft? Let's actually talk about launching your book and make the dream a reality now.
Right.
So it doesn't just say this lofty thing out there.
Right.
And then secondly, I would say the sooner you recognize in book publishing that just recognize that you don't know what you don't know. And if you can do that, you can find people who can help and minimize like hours and hours of your valuable time and money.
Right.
Not chasing in damn rabbit holes like I did, hoping that you're going to come up with, an answer on how to get an ISBN number or how to do a barcode or anything like that. Like, just know what you don't know. And if you don't know how to register your book with Library Archives of Canada, there are people who know that. So save yourself the time.
Yeah.
And just pull in somebody who can help you. We have people who do, we know different publishers who are they're such small houses that they will have the same person doing editing and the same person doing book design, and that person will like learn book design on the job. And like, well, which one could you be good at?
Yeah.
The same way for you, like you're building out your own creative agency, so why on earth would you start like, from making yourself research book publishing when there's a company who can help you?
Exactly. Yeah. It's staying in your lane, right?
Yeah.
Staying in your lane and what you're good at. So what I was going to say next was, if someone is really scared of the like publishing big thing, what are some things that you guys offer that might be like smaller versions of that to get them going, so they're not looking at the like, oh no, I don't know if I'm ready for a publisher. Like, are there things that you guys offer? Like you mentioned the Power Hour type thing. Like, what kind of other resources could they come to you for that might maybe help them
Excellent question,
get
Lindsay.
that itch?
So fantastic. What a wonderful plug. So I would say if somebody is just starting to dabble in this idea of like, maybe I want to take the book out of the, off the hard drive and start taking a look at it, or in the olden days, pulling it out of the drawer.
Filing cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. I would say we do, as you said, have a power, and this came as a suggestion from somebody, who is not in the publishing industry, but is an experienced entrepreneur, and he was said, you need a $99 offer, something that people can get a lot of value, have their questions answered, but with no commitment.
Right.
There's no tie to you, so that therefore they can, enter, wade into that pool at their own comfort level, make sure that they are able to collect some information, then they can go away and decide what they want to do with that.
Yeah.
So that would be for people who are scared or intimidated about this end destination of publishing.
Right.
That said, I can say that once we have those conversations with people, even if the power hour is all they ever have with us, to make people realize that they can actually become published within even a year.
Wow. And
to make them have a really concrete idea of just how exciting this can be, and they're not as far away as they think.
Right.
It's less in the service that we're offering and more in just the encouragement. It's the dream isn't as far away as you think. You're just one conversation away from realizing what you need to do to get there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I can't say we've had too many people who've been okay, well, I'll think about publishing still. Thanks so much for the call.
Yeah.
And go away, and as far as we know, never publish again. I don't know how often that happens, because my favorite part of the job is making sure that people feel excited about their book.
Right.
And that they can actually share it with people.
Yeah.
So
and that was your initial passion, right?
Yeah. And if they leave feeling that they're still not sure if they want to publish, then I haven't done my job.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I suck at it.
Okay, we're gonna switch it up a little bit. What is your favorite book or top 3 books? If you can pick,
let's do this last year.
That's a good one.
The last year, I will do. Oh, but now how am I gonna? I have client books that I really like too. I will say top 3 books that I've read that were published through the trade.
Okay.
Not in any particular order.
Okay.
Michelle Obama's Becoming. Listen to that on audiobook though, because Michelle Obama narrates it herself.
Oh, nice.
And if you drive a lot, she hangs out with you in your car.
That's
wonderful.
Cool.
I missed her when she was gone.
Aww.
Educated was really good, but again, I stand in the majority. I think that's top 3 books read in Canada in the last year. And then the last one that was really interesting and conversation provoking was Inheritance. I never commit an author's name to memory.
Yeah.
It seems, but that book is really good. It's a nonfiction book, but I'm not even going to try and paraphrase it for you. But it's a really good conversation to have with anyone else, at a dinner or
cool.
When you're stalled up for conversation about what would you do about genetic testing and that kind of thing. And DNA testing. So
cool.
That's what I suggest. 3 self-published books that I think people should look at this year that came out in 20...
You can keep talking.
Okay. That's all right. So 3 books that came out, I'll give The Variety that came out in 2019. Mary Hodder Ross's An Unnatural Choice, a nonfiction story about a mother who gave up her child for adoption and what that has consequently done for her life. A self-help-ish book that's, I think, it's intended if you might be single or you're looking for love or you're looking for love with yourself. It's called 4th Time's a Charm.
Okay.
By Danielle Hope Wilf, and it's designed as a little bit of a workbook, but the idea is that she's been married 4 times, and these are the lessons that she's acquired along the way, not only for herself, but in relationships.
Oh, that's great.
And then shout out to my buddy Tage, who's just published her second book, Mama Needs a Vacay. Her book last year that was published in 2018, Mama Needs a Drink, is a national bestseller.
Oh, incredible.
And then the sequel is also killing it. It came out 2 weeks ago. So those are my three, but I like all of our authors, but those are the three that came to mind just now.
Yeah,
So.
it's hard to think off the top of your head, of course. Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so the next question I have is, what movie or book character do you think you are most similar to?
Oh.
It's a tough question.
I think in my, it can only really be in my imagination because they're imaginative characters, right? So I'd say on any given day I can swing between, in the movie Devil Wears Prada, on any day I could swing between Meryl Streep's character and Anne Hathaway's character and Emily Blunt's character.
So blend kind of into one.
Yeah, one morning I could wake up and be like, I am for sure Meryl Streep in that movie, and then other days I'm like, I am Emily, and then other days I'm Anne. So there you go.
Love it. So good. So what's coming for the self-publishing agency in 2020?
Good question. We just had our first author sign with a production company.
Oh, awesome!
And we're hoping that book turns into a screenplay in 2020.
Incredible.
So that's very exciting. We have a couple people doing re-releases of new titles that they've previously published, but they're ramping it up and doing a bigger brand of it. A couple sequels.
Cool.
Maybe there's a podcast in our future.
Very cool.
And we're really excited because we're starting to help influencers publish their memoirs as well.
So, amazing.
Yeah, we've got a few really fun things coming up. Business as usual.
Yeah.
But bigger, badder, and better than before.
I like that. Very cool.
So, yeah,
very nice.
Stay in the lane. Not going to change too much. Just keep tweaking and improving. As we say, that we're just trying to tighten the bolts on our rocket ship to make sure we don't rattle too hard when we pick up speed.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, and last question. What is one thing that you're extremely proud of from this year?
Oh, good question.
2019.
I would say less about myself, and I would say how I am very, very proud of the number of quality books that have entered the marketplace because of the work of these authors.
Oh, amazing.
Award-winning authors, best-selling authors, just just great stories, whether it be fiction or nonfiction, just entering the marketplace. That would be something I'm really proud of that I was able to help facilitate. So.
Very cool. I love it. Anything else you want to share or promote or talk about?
No, I think you did a great job for us.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Where can we find you?
Selfpublishingagency.com.
Okay.
Same on Instagram, Facebook,
Perfect.
YouTube, the whole thing.
Awesome.
So
across all the board. Well, thank
nice
you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
It was really fun to hear a bit more about what you do and your passions and everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I greatly appreciate the time that you took to listen and learn a bit more about another woman in business who is truly moving and shaking the world. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please subscribe, rate, review, and share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it too. These small actions truly mean the world to a small business owner like myself. The self-publishing agency is happy to offer our listeners 15% off all power hours for the month of February. Make sure you reference this episode to enjoy this amazing service with Megan. If you're a business owner looking for inspiration and guidance in growing your business, I would love to help you. I also will be giving my listeners $25 off my Creativity Strategy Hour. By using promo code CreativityAndLove, you can use it at checkout and get it on my website, which is available on the show notes, or at www.pinkcrowncreative.com. You can also stay up to date with the latest podcast releases, behind the scenes, and insider info about each guest by following us on Instagram at Have You Met Her Yet series, or by signing up for our weekly newsletter, which will bring each episode right to your inbox. Thank you so much for listening. It truly means the world. We wish you a wonderful week and hope that it is filled with creativity and love.